Hello, today is Friday, October 4th, and welcome to episode 368 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm NSI fellow Jessica Jones, and I'm joined today by NSI's Deputy Executive Director Martha Miller and two of my favorite colleagues, Les Munson and Morgan Vigna. Okay, we're going to do somewhat of a pivot today, and we're going to talk about a story that happened last week, and actually it's not coming from the Middle East. We're talking about Japan. Last week, Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party, the LDP, elected Shigeru Ishiba as its new leader, effectively making him the country's new prime minister. So what does that mean? As you guys may know, Japan is an important U.S. partner. It hosts key military bases. It plays a crucial role when it comes to our U.S. Security interests, vis-a-vis North Korea, China, intelligence sharing, joint military exercises. It's a stalwart partner to the U.S. It's also been an important partner to Ukraine. It swiftly announced sanctions against Russia at the start of the conflict, and it's pledged billions to Ukraine, making it one of the top bilateral donors. So what might Ishiba's new prime ministership mean for the U.S.-Japan relationship? He's called for a more equal Japan-U.S. security partnership, including, interestingly, an Asian version of NATO, discussion about the use of U.S. nuclear deterrence in the region, and the suggestion of joint management of U.S. bases in Japan. He's also discussed wanting to amend the constitutional provisions on Japanese self-defense. So there's a lot there that might be a change or might not. Want to get everyone's take on it. So first, Morgan, I want to talk to you about this idea of an Asian NATO. Ishiba wrote a piece for the Hudson for Hudson Institute about how the creation of NATO in Asia would be essential to deterring China. What do you think of that? Is that actually going to happen? Is that necessary, or is that a really bad idea?
There's a lot to unpack here, Jess. First and foremost, I think we need to be thinking about the context in which Ishiba is coming to office, and the environment in the Indo-Pacific. I think if you take a look at the major date of 2027, that is the date in which has been widely speculated that Taiwan will take action, or excuse me, that China will take action against Taiwan. The United States is not ready for that, and neither are our Indo-Pacific allies and partners. And so I think as Ishiba looks at how he can deter China in his own backyard, this concept of a, Indo-Pacific or Asian NATO is attractive to him. Whether I don't think it's very realistic, especially at this point, and I don't know who exactly he would imagine to be included in the entire group of an Asian NATO. But I think generally speaking, I get where he's coming from. I understand why he would want a robust U.S. presence in the continued U.S. presence in the region. I don't think it's realistic. At the same time, I think we need to also take a look at the United States' own sort of political environment. We're going to have a new president, whether it's a Harris administration or a Trump administration. Either potential president really needs to take a look at our posture towards the Indo-Pacific and really figure out how we can work with our partners on the ground to build that robust deterrence against China. I am sure Les will talk further about Ishiba's future prospects in Japan's leadership. I will note that there is going to be a national election on October 27th, and that's a space to watch. I think this is an evolving situation, and there's a lot of potential for the relationship, but I also see some potential challenges that lie ahead, particularly related to political transition.
Yeah, Les, what do you make? Over the years, Japan has been increasingly focused on national security, on its defense posture, increasing defense spending. What do you think this new prime minister means for Japan's future in the region, for stability across the region, and our relationship with Japan?
I'm going to go ahead and pick up the gauntlet that Morgan threw down before me and say this really doesn't matter very much. The Liberal Democratic Party has a nice little system of kind of rotating prime ministers through, generally every 9, 12, 15 months. Very similar approaches from all of them. The alliance is fine. Our relationship with Japan is strong. Japan has done some smart things in the region recently. We're going to need them. I'm not worried at all about the relationship. I think this new person has kind of an interesting personality. He's got some interesting quirks. People call him a nerd. He can be a little bit abrasive. Is he going to
And
be?
you like that? You like abrasive?
I'm for nerds. I'm pro nerd and pro abrasion most of the time. And so I think the interesting question might be, if we see a return of Donald Trump to the presidency, how will this personal relationship play out? We know that with Trump, often these bilateral relationships are based on personalities and can be very temperamental, and our international interlocutors here need to be able to deal with his transactional nature and that kind of thing. So can this new fellow do it? He's a Protestant, a practicing Protestant Christian. So maybe he and Trump can talk about 2 Corinthians.
Trump can give him a Bible.
Yeah,
can give him a sign.
Maybe they have some things in common there. Maybe they can, talk to, and I'll set this up I'll throw the gauntlet to Martha here. Maybe they can talk about how the Germans would approach 2 Corinthians, the Germans who have their own interesting history with Protestantism, having invented it, 600 years ago, 500 years ago.
You made this a fun Friday without even knowing it. And we're talking about Morgan's just sitting back silent, thankful that she wasn't involved in that gauntlet throwing. Martha, what do we make of this increased, the U.S. perception in the region, this discussion of an Indo-Pacific NATO, of the sharing of U.S. nuclear deterrence? Is there a fear that we're not going to show up for our allies and partners in the region? Should we read the tea leaves that this is, our partners in the Indo-Pacific worried that they need a little more security, reassurance?
I think it's it's almost like be careful what you wish for. There are a lot of folks in U.S. politics who've been calling for more self-reliance of our allies. And they've been calling for this for a number of years. But, when push comes to shove, you got to wonder, do they really want that? And is it going to come in the form that is beneficial to the United States? I will say that this is not an illogical conclusion for our allies to come to. I think that Ukraine is a good example. And in fact, Ishiba had noted this in his piece for Hudson, that, Ukraine was not a member of NATO and was kind of left, on its own, floundering in the face of aggression from China's partner, Russia. And so, we on this podcast have been talking for some time about how this will shape what China does with Taiwan. So maybe he's been listening to the Fault Lines podcast and took our advice or heeded the warning.
We do have international listeners, so we can't prove that's not true.
Correct. He might very well be a dedicated listener to this excellent podcast. I think, but we should actually take this as a lesson that if we are not demonstrating our forward-leaning posture in the world in the face of aggression from authoritarian regimes, we are going to have complicated relationships with our allies that we did not anticipate.
Oof. Okay, that's an ominous call for the weekend. Martha, I thought you were going to be uplifting and bring us into positive feeling. No. Okay, well, that's a wrap. Thanks so much to Devlin Burney, Claude Jennings, and the entire NSI staff for their help in producing today's episode. Join us again on Monday, October 7th for another episode of Fault Lines, the national securities podcast that gets you smart fast on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. We're on YouTube. Check out our Friday faces there. And if you like what you heard or saw, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. Have a great weekend.